Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make another St. Patrick's Day card. This is the 8th in my series of cards that I've done for St. Patrick's Day in 2017. This card was a lot of fun to make, and it has a lot of elements which makes it seem a little bit more difficult than it really is. I featured a die-cut penguin here and some watercoloring on this hat and some paper piecing to make these strips. I also have another penguin on the inside. So let me show you the materials that I need to make this card. Okay, this card is a top folding card. I usually don't do top folding cards, but this design seems to be better for that. So my card base is 11 inches by 4 1/4, scored at 5 1/2. I also have a quarter of a 8 1/2 by 11 card sheet, which is 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. I also have a white panel, which is 5 inches by 4 inches. This needs 3 different pattern papers. So the first pattern paper strip is cut 5 1/2 by 2 inches. Then I have 2 strips of the second one, which is cut 5 1/2 by 1, and 2 strips of the third one, which is 5 1/2 by 3/4 of an inch. Set that aside. The ink I'm using today is Memento Bamboo Leaves and Memento Tuxedo Black. I'm also using 3 distress markers: Lucky Clover, Spiced Marmalade, and Black Soot. I'm also going to be using Wink of Stella glitter pens. I'm going to be using the blue, the brown, the red, the yellow, and the green. Also a clear Wink of Spectrum Noir glitter pen. I also need 1 inch wide gold glitter tape. I've already pre-mounted my stamps that I need on my blocks. You don't have to use as many blocks as I did, but it's easier when I make the video to do that. The stamp set, this comes from the stamp set Swatches, and this is from Simon Says Stamp. I'm using this little dot one here. And this little cute penguin set, this is a Hampton Art Penguin stamp set with die. It has a little die that cuts out the penguin. And I also need a 1 1/2 inch circle punch, which I seem to have put out of my reach. There it is. Any circle punch would do. This is a Fiskars one. Also need foam tape. Here's my giant wheel again. And regular tape and other stamp tools that you would need. Okay, let's just jump right in. First, we need to take one of the panels and cut a strip off of the long edge 1/2 inch wide so that the glitter tape can be adhered to it. This will create the side strips that we need for the card. Just lay the tape flat, and I decided to use my grid paper to make sure that I can get it lined up right. You could, of course, put the glitter tape directly on the card, but I found this easier for me. The next step is to bring in my cutter and cut this piece of cardstock in half. And that will give me 2 strips of 1/4 inch wide. One strip will have more white showing than the other, but it's okay because it'll be covered by the panel and it won't be seen. Next, I take the card base and press the seam with my bone folder. The next step will be to adhere the strips directly to the card base. I start on the left and I make sure that I leave at least a 1/4 inch of black base showing to give an edging, and I line it up from the top. It's the best way to do this, is to line it from the top, because if you make a mistake in the placement, you can always trim along the bottom, whereas you cannot trim across the top. So I put the first 2 strips on starting from the left. Now I'm starting to adhere the right strips, starting from the right, and also making sure that I leave the 1/4 inch gap on the outside. When I adhere the gold stripe, I want to make sure that it shows through from below the topmost panel, but I don't want the white area that is not covered to show, and I also want to be sure that I leave a little bit of the green to actually show and don't overpower it too much. As I did before, I worked on the left side and then I worked on the right side. And now I'm trying to make sure that I have left enough of the gold showing that it will show from below the top panel, but it's not so much that the under part shows too. And I'm satisfied with it, so now I am gluing down the top panel. And now I'm opening the card and trimming away the little bits that are sticking over the edge, like I mentioned. It's very easy to just cut it straight and it looks fine, no problem. Now to get a strip to put the sentiment on the outside. On this piece of panel that we had already cut a piece off, we're going to now cut off the bottom at least 1.5 inches to allow for this sentiment. And that will leave just enough to get the other stamped figures out, the penguin and the hat. So I'm bringing in my stamp pads to make sure that I can get a good press for this photopolymer stamp. And now I'm going to take the bamboo leaves and the swatch stamps that I had from before and stamp on the right side and add a little bit of interest with the little dots. I had to bring in a piece of paper to make sure that I don't accidentally stamp onto my stamp pad and get ink everywhere. Now it's time to get the penguin. I found that the best way for me to do this is to die cut the penguin first and then stamp on the die cut, because every time I tried to line the penguin up with the die cut, it just did not work and I just gave up. But if you feel you're steady and you could make it work, please go for it. But for me, die cut first, then the stamping. I should have mentioned, but be sure that you die cut the penguin from the lower part of the paper to allow plenty of room for the other stamping that you need to get out of that paper. Now that I have the die cut, I'm just going to ink up the stamp and look directly through the block and line up the penguin as best as I can. I got close, but I was off a little bit on his little feet, and I decided to just fix that by trimming it up with scissors later. Now I'm going to stamp the shamrock circle in the upper right corner, making sure I leave enough room for the punch. And then I'm going to stamp the hat. So I'm really making that piece of paper work. And now I'm going to do the watercoloring. You take all the shades of green and you start by going all over with the lightest shade, and then you shadow in from the left and the right side with the medium shade, and then you finish with the darkest shade to give it the depth and the shadows that you need. I'm going to speed through all of this because you don't need to watch me doing the coloring, and I'm also going to do the golds around the rim of the shamrock. Now that the coloring is done, I bring in my water pen and some cloth to wipe the brush, and I just blend out the colors. I take the green distress marker and fill in the shamrock. Now that the coloring is done, I grab my circle punch and I punch out the shamrock, making sure that I have it centered. And I set that aside. And for the hat, I just take my scissors and I fussy cut around it, making sure that I don't accidentally cut it. And I'm not worried about leaving any hard edges because I take my black marker at the end and go around the edges, and any mistakes will be obliterated. And now I start coloring the penguin. And it's basically following the same steps, except I'm using the distress markers because I wanted the colors to be a little bit more vibrant than watercoloring, especially around the black. And as I mentioned, I took the scissors and fixed his little feet. And as with the hat, I took the black marker and went around the edges of the penguin and also the circle and also the banner. And now I'm bringing in the markers and I'm going to color in the words on the sentiment. Red for the love, yellow for the ampersand, and green for the luck. And this is a sparkle pens. I also used the brown sparkle pen to do the hat rim. And now I'm going to work on the inside of the card. I decided to bring in another penguin for the inside to tie the two together. So I'm stamping that penguin with the Memento black in the lower corner. And I'm putting a sentiment beside him. And this sentiment has a little bit of coloring also. I'm using yellow for the word luck, and green for the shamrock, and blue for the word happiness down below. I've used this stamp over and over and over in my St. Patrick's Day video. So if you've been watching them, you're getting pretty used to seeing these stamps by now, I'm sure. As with the other penguin, I'm filling it in with the distress markers. And I'm speeding this up so you don't have to watch that too. Now to put the card together. I just take my tape runner and tape the panel to the inside, making sure that I have lined it up so that it doesn't impede the folding of the card. And now I'm going to get my giant roll of foam tape and put a little foam tape on the back of the penguin, and also the hat, and also the shamrock circle. And I had to be sure on the placement of the foam tape on the hat so it doesn't accidentally impede the penguin's head. So I put the foam tape a little bit high. And I thought it needed to be trimmed a little bit because it was a little bit low. I'm being very generous with the tape on the banner because it's going over 2 pieces of glitter tape and all these pieces of paper. And I'm taping that flush flat with the card. And now I'm putting the penguin so that he's on the left side of the banner, but trying not to cover the words as best as I could. But his little wing does go over the love, but it's alright. And then I took the hat and put it just a little sideways at a jaunty angle to show he's had a little bit of attitude for a penguin. And what penguin wouldn't, trotting around during St. Patrick's Day. And the last thing is to put the shamrock on. And I thought it needed a little bit of sparkling, so I grabbed my Spectrum Noir glitter pen and I gave a little bit of something on the shamrock. You can't see it very well, but it looks really pretty in real life. And I also gave a little sparkle to his scarf and his shamrock on his hat. And since I was working on the distress ink, a little bit of the ink did transfer to the tip, so I just wiped that off. So that's the card today. I hope you'll try this card yourself. As always, I have put a list of all the materials that I use down below and all of the dimensions. You can replicate this card for any occasion with any stamps that you have. And I appreciate you subscribing to my channel if you like my videos. I am appreciative for everyone's comments and feedback and positive good wishes, and I really like hearing it. Thank you for watching and have a good day.